Hi, I'm Nikki, and this is my podcast, Come to Mind. Today, I've got a really special guest with me. His name is Hazel. I've only met him recently, but I would really like to call him a good friend. And I'm really excited, actually, that I get this opportunity to learn more about you, Nick.
I
So I'm going to give you the floor and let you introduce yourself a little.
don't let me introduce myself for too long because I love talking. Yeah, thank you for inviting me onto the podcast today. Quite excited to have a conversation with you about it. And as you said, yeah, we haven't known each other that long actually, but consider you a good friend already. Yeah, it's great to have a conversation with you today.
No, it's lovely. So, do you want to give me a little bit of a background, maybe a partly personal, partly work background, so that we can figure out what you do now?
Yeah, of course. I've spent past 12, 13 years working in mental health. Specifically, I've worked with the Priory, which, just for reference, is the largest provider in Europe for mental health. Worked with them, worked my way up to their business development to kind of director. And yeah, about a year and a half ago, luckily it wasn't last year, the March before, I decided to go out on my own. I just thought I'm much more effective going out and providing kind of one-to-one business development with therapists, psychiatrists, bigger businesses, but nowhere near as big as Priory. And I work across the spectrum. Yeah, I've got I work in addiction, I work in eating disorders, I work in general, I work in child and adolescent. And yeah, my job really is to network people and grow their businesses. And from a personal point of view, I even forget my age sometimes nowadays because my birthday. It's my birthday quite 3 months away yet, but 34, wife and two young twins. And I live over right next to Gatwick. I think is the easiest place to say it because the planes used to land just over there, not far from here, but obviously they're not landing at the moment. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. How did you get yourself involved in mental health?
Um, Love to say there's an amazing story behind it, and it was always been my aim, but it wasn't. I left university when it was the market crash. I had no jobs, so I was working 5 jobs. I ended up in travel actually, working in travel for a good 2 or 3 years, and then I just wanted to get into a kind of a bigger business and a different market from that. And at the time, my wife worked at Priory, and she just said, "Look, there's this job as an admin sales support. Why don't you give it a try? Start at the bottom and work your way up." Yeah, then I got the job and moved over into mental health, and yeah, the rest is history. I personally, I should have followed this route. I think it's kind of a bit of a given because my mum is a mental health nurse, my sister is a criminal psychologist, my brother is a social worker, works a lot with mental health. It's very much in our family, and my dad as well was a nurse. Yeah, I kind of fell into it, but I think there's kind of a good kind of happy accident there, really, because I think it was supposed to be.
It sounds like you didn't really have a choice. Actually, never mind, just meant to be. So, does your wife still work at the Priory?
No, she doesn't. No, she's working for herself now. She's not in mental health. She was in the legal team at Priory at the time. Yeah, she now works for her own business within law, which is something I don't understand at all, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. So I nod my head.
Sure. And mental health passion now, or just
Absolutely
job?
not. Absolutely no. No, I wouldn't do this if I didn't enjoy it. I think, if for those that have ever been through therapy will know this, that you've got to do something that you enjoy and that you're passionate about, because then it's not work, is it? And don't get me wrong, the elements of all work is all the stuff behind it where you have to do a lot of admin and all that kind of stuff that I don't like. But no, I love mental health. I think in the last 5 years, it's come on so much into the public consciousness compared to where it was before. And you know what? People aren't ashamed of it as much as they were before. There's such a stigma behind having a breakdown or depression or stress or anxiety. No one ever wanted to talk about it. And I feel come on so much now. And the reason why it's come on so much is because people like myself and yourself are willing to talk about it and be open about it and be passionate about helping and making a difference. I don't work on the kind of cold face, so to speak. So I'm not directly with the patients, but I want to be able to make a difference. I love growing new services. I look at areas in mental health and see which is lacking and see where we can grow services and do that. it's a passion for me. I love it. It's ever changing. There's so much to it. There's addiction. There's depression. There's so much scope behind mental health that you can never really get bored with it, can you?
No, and I think especially now that we're going into, I think, the next phase of the pandemic, which is the mental health aspect of it, absolutely not going to be boring. And I think that more and more need for it is like becoming evident, obviously.
I think let's look at the positives of COVID, because we all know the negatives. But for mental health in itself, corporates have had to invest massively because they're responsible for these people at home now. And people at home are starting to realize their moods and their behaviors, because you can't hide behind it with your commute. You know, if you wake up in a bad mood, usually you can get rid of it on your commute, and you go to work and you see people and you can kind of get out of it. But now, because you can't, you have to face your stress, your anxiety, and your depression, and you have to deal with it. Because my commute is from my house 4 yards to my office out the back door, whereas it used to be an hour and a half commute every day into Harley Street. So I think it's the positives of it are that people are much more aware, but at the same time, and it's my personal opinion, there is a pandemic coming of mental health.
Absolutely agree.
I don't think anyone would deny that, and I think everyone can relate to that in some way, because we all have gone through a kind of range of emotions mentally over the past year. All of us have. We've all been scared. We've all been happy. We've all been sad. We've all been nervous, depressed, stressed. You know, all of us have. So I don't think anyone can deny what I'm saying there. But interestingly, yesterday I read an article, a huge study that's been done on COVID and mental health, and 1 in 8. Study was done in 250,000 people, and 1 in 8 within 3 months have reported a serious mental health problem after contracting COVID. Serious being psychosis was one of the most common. So, you know, the study's amazing, and I can dig it out for you and send it.
I'd love that, and I'd love to be able to share that.
Yeah, and it's a huge study. It's 250,000 people, and they also compared it to influenza and other types of flu, just to give it legitimacy. And it's completely different. It's 30% more than influenza or anything like that. So this isn't just a kind of a random kind of stat. This is something that's in there, and yeah, 1 in 8 is huge for psychosis and severe depression and developing mental health problems. It's terrifying, but it also means that we've got to deal with it. We've got to help these people as well, haven't we?
Absolutely. You know, we talk about, you know, sometimes God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. And I think that this has kind of jolted the world into saying, like, you've got to do something. You know, you can't, it's not just for the few that have the problems that are willing to talk about it, and then we'll stick them in a treatment center, psychiatric center, and they need to deal with their problems. This is now like it's in everybody's faces. It's really like we can't hide from it anymore.
There's no hiding from it. And at the same time, there are problems with, you know, let's look at the kind of problems around mental health and being the isolation that we have. And, you know, if you only have to look within the addiction world, let's say, people, are they becoming more addicted at home, or are they becoming less addicted at home? I'm not a clinician, I'm not going to pretend to, but from an outside perspective looking in, a lot of people that would go to the pub or drink at lunch or drink at dinner, they can't do that because they're around their family all the time. They're always at home. There's less chance of them doing that. Drugs wise, it's probably harder to get them at the moment as well. So I think from an addiction perspective, I think the addiction is still there, but they have a support structure behind them. Certainly with eating disorders, you know, one of the big things is making sure that whoever has it has someone supporting them every time it's breakfast, dinner, and lunch. And actually, because you've got that support structure there, I think that's very helpful. So there are the loneliness element and the issues that have come up behind it are quite interesting, because will we see more addicts after lockdown? I don't know. Will we see less? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows yet until we start to kind of move out of lockdown. But I certainly think there are going to be a mental health wise of things. People are going to be much more keen to focus on getting better and looking after themselves. So it's the proactive side, and that's what we need to be with mental health, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We've got to be proactive to stop that depression setting in. You know, getting it as soon as you can and noticing it and doing stuff about it, and keeping physically fit as well is a huge part of mental health as well, isn't it?
For sure. You know, like I was, first of all, here in South Africa, I think that there's a highlight on addiction. Actually, I don't think it's worse, but it's more like in everyone's faces as well, because we've got the prohibition of alcohol right now. So people
Yeah.
are brewing their own alcohol. They're like buying illegal alcohol. You know, we come from a serious drinking culture here in South Africa as well. And just the levels that people are prepared to go to in order to get hold of alcohol is like, for me, you know, that's addict stuff. You know, this is not like, okay, well, I can't get it, so I'll just live without it for now. This is, you know, the extreme.
Yeah, and I suppose it's quite rare that you know, the alcohol ban. I think you must be one of the only countries that are doing it. I don't know, but the implication of that, it breeds the black market. People are going to find a way to do it. I think someone, I can't remember who it was, but I read the other day, made a very valid point that, you know, the off licenses are still open here, but gyms aren't. And you know, they're allowing people to still go and get their drink and get as much of it as they want, but they're not allowing people to go and keep fit. And I understand the differences in terms of a gym and breathing and sweating and all of those kind of things, but there are ways. I've seen gyms now that are brilliant with protecting people from COVID, but you know, our government don't seem to be focused on that too much. You know, they keep the off licenses open, which I can go now and buy 200 beers if I want, or vodka or alcohol, whatever. So we have that side of things, but you guys have completely kind of the opposite spectrum, in that, you know, if people want it, they'll find it. But
Absolutely.
dangerous as well, isn't it? Because you don't know what's in those drinks that people are making. You get anything wrong with ethanol.
Well, we've had, you know, people make jokes about it because you can't find a pineapple at the shops because everyone's using them to buy to make booze.
Yeah.
But like, people have got really, really sick. They don't realize the high alcohol content of the stuff that they're making and actually getting like really ill. And for me, it comes back to that thing. We focus on the problem, and there's not enough energy and attention on the solution. You know, it's just, like, we need to do something. The solution of like having to live a balanced, healthy, holistic lifestyle is where the answer lies. And we're saying, no, we're going to focus on the problem. You can't have alcohol, you can't go into the gym. And we're missing out on like this really important opportunity now, I think.
Is to educate people much more. You know, education is key on all of this. You know, certainly when I grew up, we were never really taught about nutrition. In fact, we weren't. Um, we weren't taught. We did sport. Sport was always a big part of our curriculum, but we were never taught about understanding your body, knowing what your body needs. The different in nutrition, the things, you know, eat 5 a day. We're always told. We're always told to drink milk. We didn't know why. We just did it. And there's no education behind it. And I think now is such a perfect time for people to be educated on looking after their physical fitness as well, because that will also help mental. I know personally from running, I was doing running every day up until the last few weeks, and just cleared my mind every day, but also kept me fit. And also the doctor said, you know, I've just come back from having a severe reaction to COVID. And one of the things the doctor said to me was, it's really good that you know, you kept yourself fit, because it put you in a great position when I was my lungs were struggling. But I had to research all of that by myself. You know, there wasn't anything out there that pushed me towards it. It was just my anxiety towards getting COVID. But there's, you know, so there's the physical side of things that we have to really focus on as well, and educate people on. And now's the time to do it. People have got a lot of time. You know.
That they do.
You know, we're all sat at home, and of course there's you know, like the weekends, for example, you've got the children, etc. But I think more education needs to go into the physical side of stuff, and it will help the mental side of stuff as well, won't it?
For sure. And then I also am thinking about like the work that you do in terms of helping people grow their practices, grow their businesses. Like, how does that actually work at the moment? And can you explain the importance of that right now, based on like what we're talking about, that now is the time for mental health to become the focus?
Yeah, now's the time for mental health to be on focus. I'll go back to when it was back when lockdown really. So I say lockdown, I'm kind of generalising there, but you know, last April, let's say, when it was really a lockdown across the world. That's when certainly the UK was down, and most places were. And back then, I was speaking to people for March and April, and there was a huge amount of, and clinicians I was talking to, there was a huge amount of anxiety and stress. And then all of a sudden, everyone's businesses just dropped off a cliff. And you're talking about big businesses that have been doing this for years, or clinicians that have just always been busy, all of a sudden, nothing. And what was really interesting was I was getting contacted by so many people saying, I haven't done any marketing or business development in 5-10 years. I haven't needed to, because I've just always had a steady stream of patients that come through my usual referrers. And that's dried up. Like, I don't know what to do, like, help me. And I was quite surprised by that at the time. That a lot of people's businesses, people were very anxious, and those people that were really successful all of a sudden needed help. And when I say help, I'm very lucky because I spent 9 years at Priory, and I spent a lot of time working with private GPs, psychiatrists, therapists. So I built up a huge network. And that's what I do within business development, is I put people together. Because I have such a wide network, I meet with about 40 or 50 clinicians a month. And I help develop their business. And when someone comes to me and says, I need to grow my business, whether it's a large business or an individual practitioner, a lot of that will be networking. And it's really obvious stuff, but we do all forget to network at times. And no one really, some people, before we used to have to go into rooms of 100 people and walk in and
with your name tag and hope for the best.
Really daunting, and you bump into people and you forget their name. So you're trying to look at their name tag without them realizing, all of those types of things, and small talk and walking into a room with people. It's hard, and people found that quite hard. Even some of the best clinicians I know find that hard still. And what I realized very quickly was we've got to replicate that somehow. How do we bring people together while being very far apart? Because they need it and we need it. Started up a big webinar series. I thought that was great. I spoke to someone. I said, look, I'm speaking to so many therapists and psychiatrists and GPs, and they're all just saying, I feel alone. I feel really lonely. We know that a problem shared is a problem halved. So I just decided to do a webinar. And, we were inundated for that first webinar. You had 95 clinicians across the world, from America through to Asia. Some people were on there at 1 a.m. I tried to do it at a good time, but they're on at 1. And the one thing they all said was, it is so nice to see someone's face. It's so nice to just be reminded of people again. Oh, I forgot that person's doing this. I forgot the person's doing this. And, those webinars have grown purely because it's created a networking environment. And that's pretty much what my job is to connect people, but also grow services. I meet a lot of people and they say, I'm really, I met someone the other day that said, I'm really looking to grow lifestyle medicine. Can you help? And it's something that I know pretty well, and I've researched quite a lot. So I'm starting to build up kind of a practice for them, in that they will have, you find a team, you build the team, you get everything going, you get the strategy going, and then off you go and sell it to people and get people out there and meeting different people. My business development and what I do is connecting people. To put it very simply, it's hard to put what I do simply, because even when my friends ask me, I'm like, what do you do?
I did tell my marketing guys, I said, I can't wait for this one, because he's actually going to explain to me what he does now, even though we've had so many chats.
My wife doesn't know what I do. And you know what? Because sometimes I just like to really say, I sell mental health. And they're like, how do you sell mental health? And I'm like, okay, that's probably the wrong thing to say. But I try to put it in layman's terms, because otherwise, and I also, as you can see, talk a huge amount. So I just say, I sell mental health. But I'm a business development specialist within healthcare. So I do everything from strategy, starting out businesses, to doing research, market research, everything through to delivering it face to face, out with the GP. So when I meet with someone, I will talk across the spectrum with them. So I'll ask them, I don't have a direct sell, because in healthcare, that's not how you create relationships and build business. You build business on trust. People refer to people they trust. GPs refer to psychiatrists they trust, but also they're referring people who's been their clients for maybe 20 plus years. So they've got to know them. They've got to get to know them, and they've got to like them. And that's what I do. So, I'll go and see a clinician. I'll ask them how, is there any areas they're struggling at the moment? And most of the time they'll say, struggling to find a therapist that does this, or struggling to find a program that's good for this. Then I connect people and put them together. And so that is my day-to-day job, selling mental health.
I like that. I consider myself selling mental health too. So
But it just doesn't sound right, does it? It sounds so flippant, I sell mental health, and everyone always, I should have learned, everyone always goes, what? I'm like, oh, I don't.
Sure. And tell me something else that you and I have spoken about as well. What is your like projection around, I suppose, the new normal of how this is going to work in the future? Are we going to be staying behind screens? I mean, I love your webinars and I love being able to chat to you even though you're far away. And I love being able to work with my clients. I find a lot of my clients, even though I am offering some face-to-face, are preferring behind the screen because, you know, it's almost they're in like their own comfort zone. They're in their house. They don't have to worry about traveling where they need to go. It's just relaxed. And we're taking away one layer of protection, and they can actually like drop their guard on the other side of the screen. I'm experiencing it. Doesn't work for everyone, but for a lot of my clients, that's what I'm experiencing. So I want your kind of your projection of how this is going to work going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to project, and I think I can be confident in my projections, but I remember saying, I'm really hoping we can do a networking event in December. I remember saying that last May, and we didn't get there. So I don't like to project on COVID, so to speak. But what COVID has done, there are a huge amount of positives in the future for this business. It's moved clinicians to the 21st century. You know, I would see GPs, I would see psychiatrists that still, you know, they write everything down and then they have to pass it to their medical secretary that then has to type it up. You know, they don't do any technology. They never have. They're old school. And it's forced them to go online, which is a good thing because it means that they're flexible. And actually, once they've done it, they're much more flexible. They have a much more flexible working pattern, but they've been very much stuck in their way. So it's the first positive is that it's moved the industry up to where we should be. We should have been there 10 years ago. You know, the internet's not enough. So it also means that clinicians are much more accessible. Now, is that a good thing? I certainly feel that I actually working at home than I would going to meetings. You know, if I travel in for a meeting, it's an hour to travel in. I have the meeting and then I've got half an hour write up after it. Then I've got another meeting, you know, so I can only do a maximum of 4 or 5. At home, I could do 10, 12. And people go, oh, can you meet me at, 8 in the evening? And I can't say no because then, you know, I'm at home. I haven't got anywhere to go. So I think a lot of people are struggling with that and boundaries have had to come in from that. But I did a poll and okay, yeah, it was only 100 people, but it was clinicians across the world. And that was done back in May. And June when we started to kind of come out of lockdown a bit, and people said no, 70% of them, 70% of their practice would still be online for the foreseeable future. Only 30% that said that they would move back to the old way of face-to-face. I did it in December, only 5 months, 6 months later, and 80% of people said they wanted to go back to face-to-face. Now take from that what you want, because it's a small selection. It is clinicians. Gives me enough to kind of reassure me in my opinion of where the business is going. When we get back to any form of normality and COVID is kind of gone and in the distance, clinicians want connection. Clinicians want to do face-to-face. The webinar I did on Wednesday, Dr. Mowering talked, and one of the pillars of really helping you is connection. And as much as we can have a great connection on this, it's not the same as face-to-face. I saw my neighbour yesterday. He clearly did not have time to talk to me. Couldn't let him go. I just wanted to talk, just wanted to talk. So human beings want to interact, don't they? We want that. So I think in the future, certainly online, there's loads of elements. People have been sectioned online now. I know psychiatrists that have done that. A lot of people have moved Mondays and Fridays to working on there. I think technology-wise, it's going to drive the technological revolution within healthcare. And I only think that's a good thing. You know, we only have to talk about things, the communities that you can create online, for example. The AI, I went to an AI webinar Tuesday. And very interesting what's coming in the world in terms of technology. I mean, it's physical care, but now, for example, there is this, it kind of projects your whole body. So let's say I've gone in for a liver scan because my liver's feeling dodgy. They can project a hologram of you, your whole thing. So it's basically you. And then they can zoom in and kind of pull into your liver and show you your liver and show you the damage and move it around. And I mean, that kind of thing, because, you know, we can't see anything inside of things, can we? But with that, it allows you to see it. And I think that will be amazing. But it's also meaning that they've done a lot of work in Africa, so they've got a computer in Africa, and all the villages can come to this computer and have a consultation with a healthcare professional. So that's amazing where it's going. It's opening up all the doors for the mental health world. I think it's only going to help grow it. I think it's going to make it much more accessible to people. It's hard at home because the person causing the problems could be in the room next to you. And that is a problem. But in the addiction world, a lot of clinicians have said that you can't breathalyze people, so you don't know if they're coming in drunk. You can't do any of that kind of thing. So a lot of clinicians will want to move back to that way of one-to-one still, bricks and mortar, and rehabs, absolutely. But there is that 20%, and I think that's just going to grow and grow and grow. Online care, daycare online, rehab online. People have been doing it for the past 12 months because of COVID. And you know what? Some really good success rates. It's not going to change the addiction world, but it's going to become more of it. Nothing will beat bricks and mortar. Nothing will. Nothing will beat face to face. But the point is that market will grow because it is working. And the stats show that it is still being just as effective, more in mental health than addiction. But the stats are showing that. So it's a long answer because it's such a huge market, isn't it? But, within the next 2 years, once we've got COVID under control, which realistically is going to be the end of this year at the earliest, kind of across the world, because vaccination is going to have to come in. I think next year is going to be the kind of year of mental health and growth. And technology is going to play a big part in that. I think that's the big thing in the next years. Technology.
Yeah, so I certainly am in that field where I am having great success running outpatient online. And for me, having the face-to-face sessions is still to deal with those clients that have got like that fear of the technology, but also first and foremost, it's really for me to connect with colleagues. Like, it's not me necessarily needing to connect with my clients face-to-face, but just to be able to go and have a coffee and shoot the breeze with one of my colleagues, which I haven't been able to do. I really love my husband and I love my kids and I love my animals, but my goodness, I've seen their faces all day, every day for
constantly, always. Like you say, it's no disrespect, but I just want some human interaction.
Correct.
Always say, the pub, and the pub exists because people go there and they just want to talk. Okay, there's the drink there. A lot of my friends go now and don't drink, with 0% alcohol. We need that. We just need to go and blow off steam, don't we? And there is this epidemic of divorces. I deal with a lot with lawyers. And lawyers at the moment, people can't. People can be thrown out of their houses, but you can't go anywhere. No hotels are open. So people, and obviously 24/7, there is a big problem there that's only going to grow. These lawyers I speak to are inundated at the moment with divorce proceedings. It's another
level we haven't even thought about.
Why? See why? You're not supposed to spend 24/7 with anyone.
No.
You're supposed to have a break. That's why I like the fact that I now have this office, because I can come outside and start my day and hide from the kids, even though they can run up to a window.
We won't tell anyone that, even though we're doing this on a podcast, and they may totally have access to that.
On a podcast.
So we're running out of time. I just wanted to say, I love talking to you. I've said it to you many times. I feel energized after I speak to you. So I'm very grateful to our relationship to be growing and to figuring out how to help people on a mass scale. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, me too. And I think you and I can definitely go on that journey together. We do the same thing. We sell mental health. But we both believe in making a difference for people and helping people. And I'm not on the coalface, so I can't, help people from a clinician's point of view. But if we can do that and help and drive and develop mental health and get it to the forefront, then absolutely, let's continue to do so. But thanks for your time. I love talking to you, as you know. I love talking. Thanks for your time.
Now you're going to have to go back and spend time with your family.
And probably breathe as well, because
and that too.
A lot, and I think my lungs are going to start hurting from the COVID. So,
well, thanks for putting yourself out there. Appreciate it. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Have a good one. All right.
You too. Bye.